Hi everyone, I'm Allie Buckman with the Potomac Bead Company, and I am doing this video today called Molecules. I have the beads all laid out in front of me. This design is by Eva Rushton, and she was our Potomac Bead Company Potomac Bead Challenge Design Challenge of 2016. She was our winner, and she had a lot of likes on Facebook, and I know a lot of you guys are waiting for this pattern, so I thank her for her design using a lot of our beads, and I'm going to go ahead and do it for you guys. This is the first time I'm going to do the necklace, so we're going to be doing it basically together. For the materials, if you need any of these, on the left-hand side here, we'll do a little drop down listing those different materials, and you can decide what colors you want to do, what you want to use. Also, if you need to, underneath the video here, there's a little description box that says show more detail. You can click on that and get links to all the products as well. Some of you may already have these great materials, and some of you may need to get them, so you can check out your local Potomac Bead Company store or shop with us online. This design really uses a lot of different products of ours, which is pretty cool that it was picked as the winner from our 3 judges, as well as from the likes on Facebook and all of that. We're going to be using the RounDuo, the DiscDuo, and the RounTrio, along with highlighting it with some daggers, the Potomac Crystal Rondelles, some 11/0s, and a cup button to close it all off. For the design, I've chosen to use my DiscDuos in our new color. This is the Pastel Burgundy color, and I'm going to be using about 39 DiscDuos following her pattern that she had in her picture. After the DiscDuos, we get to use the RounDuos, and this is the Zinc Iris color in the RounDuos. So we're going from a 6mm DiscDuo to a 5mm RounDuo in the Zinc Iris color. Going then again to another color in purple. This is the RounTrio, and the RounTrio is in Pastel Bordeaux. And then I'm going to use, and we're using, 39 DiscDuos, about 40 RounDuos, and 41 RounTrios. And then at the bottom, we're going to highlight it all with these cool daggers. These are actually a 2-hole dagger. We're just going to be using 1 hole, but you won't see because of the Picasso, the extra hole that's open. And this is the opaque rose gold topaz luster in the 2-hole daggers. The 2-hole daggers are a 5x16mm. The cool thing about this necklace, you could really switch up what you use if you have something else. And these are, you're going to use about 17 of the daggers. In addition to the different Potomac Bead Company Czech beads, we also have our faceted crystal rondelles, and these are 3x4mm, and I'm using the light Colorado topaz color for that. I'm going to close it all off here with a cup button, and this cup button here is the Opal red luster, which has a nice little purple finish. And I have 2 11/0 seed beads sitting here, Miyuki seed beads in 11/0. I have galvanized gold as well as galvanized smoky mauve. I'm going to be using both and kind of interchanging them a little bit. She's stuck with one really pretty purple color. If you get a chance, you can go to our Facebook page, as well as listed online right now, the winners, and you can check out our jewelry, our beading and jewelry making Facebook group, which would have Eva's exact copy of what she did in her picture there. I'm going to be stringing the whole thing together on some wildfire beading thread, and I get to use the new gray color because it's going to blend nicely with all my different tones and textures, and you won't see it through the crystals because it's nice and light. So I'm using the 0.006 wildfire beading thread in the new gray color. I have a size 10 beading needle here, and this is just the Pony brand beading needle. You could also use a tulip needle. Anything from a 10 to a 15 or a 10 to a 12 needle would work. I'm working on my bead on it board here. You can see the little pattern here, and I use a lot to video. This is the 8x11 size, in case you want to know. I have my wildfire cord cutter and my super new glue. I'm really excited to do this pattern because most of the times that I do patterns and make things, it's completely my design, and I don't actually follow anyone. So it's kind of cool to make a new design that I actually haven't had to come up with. Eva's taken the pressure and really the design element away from it, and I just get to make and enjoy. So I'll take you guys through step by step making this Molecules necklace. So to get started, the first row of this necklace, because we're going to be going back and forth and kind of gathering and attaching to the different holes of the different beads. To start out, I have laid out my Potomac crystals. I have the DiscDuos and my 11-0 seed beads. I have about 5 feet of thread on my beading needle, and I'm going to put on one of my gold beads to use as a stop bead. The clasp will be used at the added at the very end of this necklace, just to make sure I get it right. So I have on my bead here, and I'm going to leave about 4 inches of thread at the bottom here, go through that stop bead, creating the stop bead 2 times. That's going to put the thread on the outside of the bead twice, and that bead then eventually will come out of, or off of my project. So to start out really simply, the cool thing with this necklace is it's nice and simple, and a really novice and a beginner can do it. And it's all about spacing. So to start out, I have 1 seed bead, 1 crystal, 1 seed bead. Then I put on one of my DiscDuos. Sometimes during manufacturing, anything that has 2 holes, you want to just check ahead of time that all of the holes have 2 holes the whole way through. Sometimes a different coating process or just the manufacturing, because it's done on such a small scale with the small beads, the second hole is blocked. So you want to go through ahead of time and just make sure that all of the holes are open for any time you're using any 2-hole bead, whether or not it's something we produce or somebody else produces. I've had Tilas and Super Duos and everything with a blocked hole. So literally what I just showed you, adding on the seed bead, the crystal, the seed bead, and the DiscDuo, is the same pattern the whole way. Again, Eva used 39 of the DiscDuos, so I'm going to repeat this until I'm done with 39 DiscDuos and 40 of my crystals, just picking up an 11-0, a crystal, an 11-0, and a DiscDuo. Continue this pattern the whole way down, just repeating again until you have 40 of your crystals and 39 of your DiscDuos onto your thread and sitting right there next to the bead stop. So I have my 39 DiscDuos on, and it's about 18 inches. And those DiscDuos are just separated again by the Potomac crystal and the seed beads. When I get to the end of the necklace, I started out with the crystal, and I ended with the crystal and the seed bead. The next row, you can see here, I have my RounDuos in that zinc iris color out. And when I get to the end, I'm going to add 2 more seed beads of that same mauve color. And let those drop down next to my thread. So I have 3 seed beads in a row. Next, I'm going to pick up my RounDuo, and I'm simply going to add a RounDuo and a seed bead on each side in between the second hole of the DiscDuo. So very simply, I add a RounDuo and a seed bead and come back going the opposite way. So now I've turned around and I'm going back the opposite way through the first disc, or the last DiscDuo that I put on. You can see there's some slack in the thread. What you want to do is actually give that a nice tight pull to create a little tension. Now as I'm coming out the DiscDuo, I put on an 11-0 seed bead, RounDuo, 11-0 seed bead, and I did switch to that galvanized gold color. And then I'm going to go through the empty hole of the next DiscDuo in line. And there I have it. Simple pattern again, guys. It's really nice and easy. You're just doing a RounDuo with a seed bead on either side and sewing into the next open hole of the DiscDuo, sewing back towards that stop bead. The difference in the size of the beads and the spacing is what's going to create that nice arched level that is done in the design. So again, just going through, we're going to be adding 40 RounDuos in between and on the ends of our 39 DiscDuos, all separated out with an 11-0 in between. Keep going the whole way down the necklace until you get to the very end, and then we'll turn around and come back and add our next component. So I'm done adding my RounDuo beads, and the RounDuos you can see went right along the base of the DiscDuos. When I get to the end and I'm through my last DiscDuo, I'm going to put on my RounDuo in my pattern of my 11-0, my RounDuo, and my 11-0. I'm then going to mimic what we did on the starting side over here and add 2 more of my 11-0 seed beads. Now I get to play with my RounTrios. The RounTrios have 3 holes, and to start out I'm just going to be going through one of the outer holes. So you just want to make sure you're going through an outer hole and not one of the middle holes. I'm going to go through an outer hole here, and then I'm going to add another 11-0 seed bead and sew through the empty hole of my last RounDuo bead that I added. Give a nice tight pull to tighten up any extra thread that may be showing. Next, I'm going to continue adding my RounTrios by adding an 11-0, RounTrio, 11-0, and sewing through the next RounDuo in line. Our thread turned around and we're going now from one direction to the other. And you can see kind of how those sit there on the end. I'm just going to continue adding my beads with my RounTrios, adding an 11-0, sewing through one of those first holes of the RounTrios and right through the RounDuo. So I'm just going right down in line just like we've been doing with the RounDuo and the DiscDuo and adding them right in line, going through, make sure you're going through the first hole of the RounTrio bead, and that's going to give you more of that curvature and that collar look that we're trying to achieve. After you have on all your RounTrio beads between the DiscDuos, you're going to go ahead and add your last of your RounTrio beads. The RounTrio beads, I'm going to add 1 of my RounTrios here, or 1 seed bead and 1 RounTrio bead. And then I'm simply going to go from the first hole of the RounTrio down to the second hole of the RounTrio. So going from the first to the second, and you can see a little bit of that gray thread there. And that's just going to hang out there until we get ready to kind of add all of these beads together when we're working with them. So now I get to add my 4th layer of beads. The 4th layer of beads is just going to be my 11-0 seed beads with my crystals in between. So going back almost to that same crystal pattern that we did at the top. We're going to mimic that by using the dark mauve and the same Colorado topaz crystals. So on goes the pattern again, the 1 bead 1, which has been our pattern the whole time, going through the second hole of the RounDuo bead. So right there through that second hole. This is going to run down the whole middle here of the RounTrios. So on goes a seed bead, crystal seed bead through the middle hole of the RounTrio bead. I'm just continuing on with that very simple pattern that we've been working on with the 11-0, the crystal, and the 11-0. You can see how it's turning out right there. When you get to the end of adding your RounTrio beads, you get to start the actual bottom of the necklace. Now, Eva may have done this in 2 sections. I'm going to just do it in 1 simple section, getting both the middle hole and the last hole of the RounTrio bead. When you reach the end of the RounTrios, just like the other side, we are ending with 1 additional bead. So I'm going to put on 1 of my RounTrios. I'm then going to take my thread and needle from the top hole of that RounTrio down to the second hole. I'm not putting on any extra beads because we're going to kind of decorate that end a little bit when we add the clasp, but I'm just going to add that just simply. To create our pattern, we're going to be using a lot of our Potomac crystals. So I'm kind of pouring those out here. And I'm going to end with my darker seed bead, that mauve color. As we get towards the middle, I'll grab my dagger beads and we'll add those. But here at the end, the pattern is going to be very simple for the middle hole. When I'm creating the middle hole for the design, we're going in and we're adding one of our 11-0s, a crystal, and one 11-0. Sewing through the first hole, or the middle hole, I'm sorry, of the next round trio bead. And then I'm going to take my needle and thread and sew from the middle hole to the bottom hole of the round trio. When I'm coming out the bottom hole of the round trio, you can see a little bit of thread there. I'm going to add more crystals with 2 seed beads on either side. So I have 2 11-0s, one of my crystal, and 2 11-0s. With my thread coming out closest to that round trio, kind of hanging out there at the end, I'm going to go back through that bottom hole of the round trio that my thread is coming out of, going towards the end. That's going to decorate the end of the round trio there with a crystal. Taking my needle and thread then, I'm going back through that middle hole of the round trio that we started it on. I'll do this for you again. Adding an 11-0 seed bead, adding my crystal, and an 11-0 seed bead. I'm going to sew through the next round trio through the middle hole. When I'm coming out that middle hole then, after I have those seed beads and crystals in place, sewing through the bottom hole. When I'm coming out the bottom hole, on goes 2 11-0s, my crystal, and 2 11-0s. Sewing around in a circle from the one side of the bottom hole to the other side of the bottom hole with my needle coming out towards the end. Then taking my needle and thread, sew through that middle of that same round trio. Give a nice tight pull and just make sure they're sitting nicely. So you can see here the effect that it's getting, that teardrop effect. Again, adding an 11-0, a crystal, 11-0, sewing through the middle hole of the round trio, taking my thread and needle from the middle hole through the bottom hole towards the end here, coming out on that side, add 2 of my 11-0s, 1 crystal, 2 11-0s, sew back through that round trio in the same direction. Sew from the top hole or the bottom hole to that middle hole and continue on. So you can see that that's adding that nice little crystal fringe there on the bottom, and the necklace really does sit in that graded color, which is pretty cool. Makes it a little bit hard to video, and it's going to make it even more fun to actually take a picture of. Eva did a great job taking a picture of it. But I'm going to go in now, continuing on adding those middle beads. Eva added 17 of the daggers. So what I want to do is make sure as I get down to the middle, I'll kind of put the daggers in place and count back from the middle, making sure that I have enough space to get those 17 in. So as I'm beading away here, I'm at my 13th of my RounDuo bead, counting the beads coming down. And that's when I'm going to start adding my dagger bead. What you do is continue on with your crystals in between your beads, sewing through that middle hole, going from, oops, I got a wrong color on there. So you're going to go through that middle hole there. I have to get on the correct color beads. And I'm going to go from the top hole to the bottom hole, just like I've been doing. And instead of adding the crystals, this is where we get to add the dagger bead. So I'm coming out my round trio there, the last hole, and I'm switching to my gold beads to kind of highlight that gold at the end and to just make it stand out a little bit more. going back through the round trio then, just like I've been doing. So instead of the crystal, we're putting the dagger bead. You can see that it hangs nicely there on the side. Going back through the middle then, and add in your crystal. So just like we've been doing, we're adding the crystals in between the round trios. And then at the bottom of the round trios, when we come out the bottom hole, that's when I get to add those dagger beads. And like I said before, my daggers have 2 holes. I'm just using the top hole. With the Picasso finish, you really can't see the second hole, and I just liked the color, so I'm going with it. Going back through, and we'll get the second one on here and then lay it down for you to see. So you can see now the effect that the daggers are having, just kind of hanging out there on the bottom. Continuing on, I'm going to add in my 17 daggers, and then I'm going to go back to the crystals and finish off with a crystal look, continuing down doing that round trios, the first hole or the middle hole to the last hole, and then back down towards the next bead. So I'm through to the end now, adding on the different beads, and what I'm going to do is actually create the bridge between basically all of these beads and add on my button to the end of the necklace. To do so, I'm coming out the middle hole of my round trio bead. I'm going to add on 2 beads and sew up through one of the 3 beads coming out of the top hole of the round trio there. Next, I'm going to add another bead. Pull that stop bead out of the way a little bit and sew through the seed bead, the seed bead, the crystal, and the seed bead there at the top. And you can see that kind of pulls that whole end in there together. And I'm going to let my button come out over here on the side. To get back to that side, I'm going to go down the DiscDuo and come out through the round trio, or the RounDuo rather, and come out that line of seed beads that I created, and then add on my button here. To add on my button, what I'm going to do is add on 2 of my darker purple seed beads, go up through the back of the button, coming out the front. I'm going to add 3 of my gold seed beads and go down the other hole of the cup button. Add 2 more of those mauve seed beads. And then I'm going to sew back through that line that my beads were coming out of. So back through those 3 beads there, making sure that it all stays to the outside. So that's going to put my button right in place. So when you look at the piece, the button's going to be right there, not too far away from the actual piece itself. I'm going to sew back down that line, and I'm going to reinforce my button. And actually I'm going to take my needle and thread back out of one of those beads and go through the round trio. And then back up the seed beads on the side here, so that way I can go in and actually reinforce my beads. So I'm going to go in here. I have a tiny little space here. I'm just going to add a seed bead to close that up. Go back through the cup button. And then where I'm going to end my thread is actually where my starter thread began. On the second side, when I add my clasp, which is going to be my loop for my cup button, I'll add a new piece of thread. So coming down the cup button, I go through the seed beads again, back out through those mauve seed beads, and back through the row of 11 O's, back till I hit the mauve right near the top in the crystal. Pull that stop bead off right there, and tie those 2 thread ends together. I'm going to keep the needle on my thread, so that way I have it all ready to go for the second side. And just to let you know, the actual thread that I used about probably right about 12 feet of thread. So when I say 5 feet at the beginning, that's always my starting amount. I don't like to work with more than 5 feet because it bunches up and it tangles and everything. So I usually start with about 5 feet. I'm going to go ahead and glue that knot down then that I've created, just the tiniest little bit. Let that dry a little bit, burn off that thread, and then we're going to flip over to the previous side here, and we're going to add our loop on this side. On the other side here, I have my one RounDuo that doesn't have a crystal on it. I'm going to utilize that to be my area where my loop comes out of. I have a little bit of thread left on my needle, and I'm going to start by going through those 3 seed beads there that I put on the side. Turning the RounTrio almost on its side. I'm going to pick up 2 more seed beads and sew through the uppermost hole of the RounTrio. And that's going to pull that RounTrio down a little bit. Then going through the RounTrio, I'm going to come out the middle hole, turning the thread around, going from the outer hole to the inner hole. When I'm out that hole, I'm going to create my loop. So my loop is just going to be my gold seed beads, because that's what I have on my board here. And I'm going to use about 25 gold seed beads. You want the loop to be big enough that it fits the cup button, but you don't want it too big that it's going to fall off. This is a fairly heavy necklace, so you should have no trouble with the weight holding that button in place. Putting all those beads on. And once they're all on, we'll make a loop and then reinforce that. Couple more beads on. And in her design, Eva did use 15 O's here at the end, so that's an option as well. I just didn't want you guys to have to grab a whole nother bead that wasn't used in the project. But I like the look of the 15s if you would want to use those. I'm coming out the middle hole of the RounTrio, and I'm going to go through the bottom hole of the RounTrio and create that loop. Going back then from that bottom hole, I'll decorate it with just 2 seed beads, go back through the middle hole, and reinforce that whole loop that you just did. So reinforcing by going back through all of those seed beads one more time. Anytime you have a clasp, you probably get sick of me saying this if you watch a bunch of the videos, reinforce the clasp. That's going to be where the most tension is. Once I'm through that bead, again going and coming out the bottom hole here, I'm going to snake back through the RounTrio bead, coming out the bottom hole, going up through the middle, and my thread's getting small, so I'm going to go up through the middle hole, and then come down through the end hole. That's going to bring my thread and needle out right here on the side. Going back here, I'm going to give nice tight pulls just to make sure my beads cooperate and go where I want them to be. I'm just going to sew my thread and needle back through the beads so I can get back to my starter thread. Tying off the knot then, same deal, super new glue, and then you're actually completed your project. Once you're all finished with the ends, you're done your necklace. It's really hard for collars to kind of sit in frame, but I wanted to show you guys the finished product, and as you wear it, it all lays nicely and it has a nice color. Eva did a great job of kind of counting out and making sure that it lays right. So you have a very cool piece, a very cool color that you're able to do rather quickly because of the big beads and play around using all the cool Potomac Bead Company products. Again, if you need any of these products, you can go to PotomacBeads.com. You can go back to the beginning of this video, or you can go to the Show More button underneath. You can also go to your local Potomac Bead Company store, grab some of the materials, and make one of your very own molecule necklaces. If you do want to check out the different beading contests, the different news that we do, you can become a member of our Facebook book, Beading and Jewelry Making, and that will give you access to the design contest, the pictures, if you want to see Eva's actual original design, which was in pretty blues. That's why I kind of changed up the colors a little bit. But have fun creating. If you guys want to, you can subscribe to this channel to get regular updates on different designs, design challenges, products that we have. So stay tuned always for more. And once again, congratulations, Eva, on your Potomac Bead Company 2016 win.